Yeah, but besides your life planning, you did look at exciting things in technology and things that were interesting, right? And so, or at least that's what I picked up from your story when you reviewed your career. And so one of the things that I think we all heard people say is that, hey, I wouldn't mind having the role that Joe has. But I guess that most people don't understand what that role entails. And one of the things that you said, well, my role as CTO are actually three parts, and I really liked the therapy part of it. I kind of laughed at it, and but maybe it is actually good to explain what a typical week looks like for you, and also because it's a compounded question. Can you also tell us what changed when the pandemic started? How it changed?
Yeah, so let's look at the typical week because there isn't one, right? I mean, it's like you guys and your roles and everyone else. I mean, I don't have a typical week. My weeks vary massively. There's not even a typical month because, some weeks it could be the whole week's taken up with an event like radio or our internal R&D conference, or the whole week's taken up with VMworld Explore or whatever it is. Other weeks might be like, I suppose, last week I spent 2 days hosting a bunch of CTOs from one of our partners for sort of an in-depth, what are you doing? What are we doing? Literally showing what we're doing, and from at a very high level, no, a very low level in terms of technology, but a high level in terms of the organizations getting together and understanding how we're going to move together as partners going forward. So that was one. And, I sort of, if I look back at my calendar, as I'm actively doing right now, as I talk to you about this, it's kind of the only way to remind it because my life is so mad and messed up, Previous to that was a keynote for our customer technical advisory board, then meetings with McLaren. Pretty cool, right? I can't deny that that's not a fun thing that I get to do. Customer meetings, there were 2 or 3 customer meetings last week, one in person, 2 or 3, remote, and also went out for a industry dinner last week up in Wales. This Cyber UK dinner with presentations by the First Minister and the Minister for Security, etc. in the UK. And next week, actually, in fact, this week, I'm going to be meeting ministers in the UK and MPs, etc., and talking about what we do in our work. And the weeks before that might be presenting at AWS Summit. It might be stuff to do involved with running our veterans pod. It might be to do with running mental health that I do internally, recording podcasts like Innovation Hunters that we do internally, these ones externally, hosting VBCs. It goes on and on and on, whether it's writing articles, talking to the press. It's massively varied. And I think that's the exciting thing, to be honest with you, Frank, is that there's never the same thing. I look at a week and one month is never like the next month. I'm never getting stuck. I'm never getting stayed. And I remember, actually, it was funny, talk about this at Hewlett Packard when I worked there. The reason why I chose to leave Hewlett Packard in the end was I've been working in the same office at the same desk for 2.5 years. And one morning I got to my desk and I had absolutely no recollection of how I'd got there. That you'd become so automatic, getting out of bed, getting in my car, driving there. I couldn't have told you one thing that had happened before I got to that desk. It was like, okay, I need to change. This is not good. So that's kind of where that change happens. And yeah, I've ended up in a job that I like, that I've created for myself. I'll be honest with you, and then it's been cloned into other regions of this role of just being able to, the person that I best summarize my role is most people come to me, and I said this actually when I presented to Kit sort of recently on summarizing the role, is people always start with approaching me with, well, we've asked everyone else, but, which is kind of where it starts. It's like we couldn't work out who would help us with this, so we thought we'd come to you and you might be able to know. So that's kind of where it fits in. And I know in your roles, I think that probably happens a lot too. It's like, well, I've tried everything else and I've kind of run out, so I figure if I come and ask you, you'll know. So yeah. And then the other part you asked about the pandemic, right? Yeah, the pandemic was a massive shock from and it was. I hate to sound like this, but it was also awesome in a way. So just prior to pandemic, I mean, bear in mind, my job, as you probably just heard, is travel. It's travel. It's flying over here, doing this, doing that. Literally, the minute I leave this podcast, I'm going to go out and jump in my car and drive to a customer meeting, and then I'm going to go back out because I'm going out for dinner, and then I've got to get up tomorrow morning, go to a customer meeting, then drive straight into London for something else. Then when I finish that, drive up to Manchester, and then I'm presenting in Manchester. It's just all. It's like some planes, trains, automobiles thing, which involves me getting on a plane to Dublin on Friday morning. And frankly, I'd had enough of it. Just prior to the pandemic, I was like, oh my God, I don't think I can do this much longer. I can't see myself doing this another 5 years. I really can't, So the pandemic was a fabulous kind of reset for that. And it was good because you realized how much of the travel you were doing was frankly unnecessary. And so now it means that I'm going back into it again now. And I think we're all doing this, where we're starting to say, actually, I don't need to be there in person for that. I can do that remotely. And in fact, if we plan this a little bit more carefully, I can get a bit more quality of life out of that. So yes, I'm back at it. I'm traveling, but I'm doing it on my terms, put it that way, in the way that I want to do it. But yeah, the pandemic was massively transformative. Also, I had the great fun, should I say, or the honor or privilege of being thrown into the contact tracing app in the UK. And there's been a blog written about that you guys can read as well. I'm sure we'll link to it from this, that occupied the first few months of the pandemic for me in more ways than one. So I was sort of taken out of my whirlwind world, and it wasn't like I was sat at home twiddling my thumbs going, well, what do I do now? It was like I'm straight into something else. I think the other thing, here's an interesting one for you. The one thing for me, if you'd asked me pre-pandemic to do a presentation over Zoom to a conference, I would have gone, no, that's never going to work. Sorry, can't do it. And now, obviously, I have to do it. I think it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. I'm getting better at it. But I've been back in a few rooms in front of live audiences recently, and oh my God, it's so much better.